The DFLC has invited Mr. Phillips here. He is the father of Kelly Phillips, who passed away due to a distracted driving accident. We have invited Mr. Phillips to talk about his experience and Kelly's story and how we can affect our community positively and create a distraction-free driving culture in Minnetonka High School. Okay, so first we would like to thank you for agreeing to have this interview with us because we understand that sometimes talking about tragedies can be difficult. So first question would be, could you introduce yourself and Kelly's story?
Well, sure. I'm Dan Phillips, and uh, I'll just say that I've spoken a lot about Kelly's accident, and I haven't as much in the last couple of years, but I think it is important to share the story. Maybe it'll prevent others from having the same thing. Kelly was really active at Minnetonka High School. She was in an organization called Tonka Leadership Council. I don't know if it's still active, but Coach Nelson had started it. She played hockey, she JV tennis and golf, and was preparing the day she died, actually, applications to three colleges, and she was working on that the afternoon of her death, and she was excited about looking forward to college the next year. Our family, my wife's name is Jane, and we have two other children. Annie was a sophomore at Minnetonka when the accident happened, and she's 29 now, working in Minneapolis. And Bobby, our son, was in seventh grade. Really tough ages for them to have this happen.
Do you want to talk a bit more about how exactly the accident happened?
The accident occurred on Friday, September 21st, 2007. It's already been 13 and a half years, which is hard to believe. But it was a beautiful Friday, and the driver name was Kylie, and she had moved into our neighborhood in Sweetwater. Really had come from kind of a broken home in Wisconsin and moved in with her grandfather and his second wife, and they had reached out to Kelly, and Kelly really had helped introduce Kylie into the Tonka high school scene, which sometimes is tough to break into. With cliques have been established, etc. But and they were pretty good friends, and they were headed to a senior chaperoned bonfire at Kylie's grandfather's farm, which was about 7 or 8 miles south of Chaska. And there's a lot of weird circumstances, but Kylie was supposed to drive, and Kelly was supposed to ride with her. Sort of at the last minute, Kylie's cousin ended up coming. That put Kelly in the back seat of a convertible that was older, quite frankly, not very safe, and didn't have workable seat belts. We think it's the only time in Kelly's life that she ever was in a car without workable seat belts. I actually, when I was 22, was involved in a rollover, drank too much, but I was properly restrained and was unhurt. And my family knew the story. We were fanatics as far as seatbelt use. But Kylie was running late to pick Kelly up, and that added to the problem because Kylie was speeding. And we know how the accident happened because Kylie's cousin was in the passenger seat. He was the only one properly restrained. He had his seatbelt and shoulder harness on. Kelly didn't have access to workable seatbelt in the back seat, and Kylie only had her lap belt on. And I've read the cousin's statement to the highway patrol, and he said Kylie was speeding and was texting and was distracted, and the wheel went off the road, and Kylie looked up and yelled shit and overcorrected to the left, and then she overcorrected to the right, and they went into the ditch, and she was, according to the cousin, trying to pull it back onto the road, and the car started to rotate, hit a culvert, and flipped twice. And Kelly was ejected, and Kylie, because she only had the lap belt, was kind of hanging over the side of the car, and when it rolled, it crushed her. And Kylie was dead at the scene. Kelly was airlifted to Hennepin County Hospital. She was brain dead Friday night, but not declared dead until Saturday afternoon. So that was quite a scene down there. So distraction, speeding, and for Kelly, lack of a seatbelt. I think had she had proper restraint, she would not have been ejected. And the cousin did survive. He was hurt pretty severely, but I would say fully recovered. So I can't emphasize enough, not only the distraction piece of this, but speeding is dangerous. And obviously, texting and lack of a seatbelt were all the factors that contributed to this accident. It's really ironic because they were coming from the top, which would have been the north, and heading south. And right about where there's a little driveway that comes off the road. So it's hardly even a turn. It's not like it was a tough turn to negotiate. She just wasn't paying attention. And if you look carefully, there's 3 yellow lines or 3 yellow spots on the road that Highway Patrol painted. And that's kind of where they went off the road. And you actually can see tire tracks leaving the road. So that's County Road 40. The other factor, I guess, it was at about 8 o'clock at night on September 21st. It was pretty dark. So that also, I think, was a factor. But they were a half a mile from the farm. I think she texted because she was late to the bonfire that she was hosting. I think, quite frankly, her grandfather's wife was texting, "Where the heck are you, Kylie?" And unfortunately, she answered, and another minute, and they would have been pulling into the farm, and we wouldn't be talking today. So that's really how it happened, and a lot we can learn from that, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. There are definitely always so many factors to this.
There was a very interesting story I was told, and it was maybe 2 months after Kelly's accident. It was a group of 4 Minnetonka High School students, and they were headed, I think, to a dance, and 3 of the 4 didn't have their seatbelts on, and the driver said, "Wait a minute, let's get your seatbelts on." And somebody said, "Nah, we only got 5 minutes to go." And somebody said, "Remember Kelly?" And they all clicked. And about 2 minutes later, they hit a light pole. And nobody was injured because they all had buckled up. And so I would say that just get in the habit of doing it every time. And see, Kelly, her friends will tell you she was a fanatic when she drove. She didn't move till all the belts were clicked. She also drove kind of like a grandma, I'm told, very conservatively. So it's sort of the last person you'd ever think could happen to her. However, it's just crazy, weird odds of that.
So the next question was, how have you tried to influence the community after Kelly's passing? Because basically what we want to do with all of these tragedies is we want people to learn, and we want our community to eventually become one where distracted driving caused accidents are virtually none, So how have you tried to influence the community?
Well, we did start a foundation, Kelly Phillips Foundation, and we have it's called a donor advised fund. It's a charitable fund that we make donations to causes that Kelly would have liked, we believe. A lot of youth athletic organization. She had a very strong faith, very active in her church at Mount Olivet that we still attend. So faith-based initiatives as well. And for a number of years, I spoke a lot to driver training classes. and often involved their parents, and talked about Kelly's accident as a way of, it can happen to you. I would hear before Kelly's accident, I would hear about accidents and people dying, and it isn't going to happen to you. I guess if it can happen to Kelly, it can happen to anybody. And so we've tried to use it to help others. And I think that's something Kelly would have wanted us to do. So yes, we have.
It's very honorable of you guys, seriously. Thank you. Why is it important for high schoolers to understand the dangers of distracted driving? And if we can add on to that, despite obvious dangers and obvious examples in our own communities, why do you think high schoolers still choose to drive while distracted?
Well, I think part of it is young people are at least feel indestructible. And again, I think it goes back to it isn't going to happen to me. And I did do a little research in the last few days. I kind of relooked at some numbers, and for 16 and 17-year-olds, driving accidents are the second leading killer of young people. It's very sad, but suicide is number one. But certainly traffic accidents take a heavy toll. I know there was a few weeks ago, a 17-year-old hockey player from Woodbury was killed in a car accident. And that brings back, memories for us every time I see news of particularly a young person, but anybody killed. And I also looked at of this 16 and 17-year-olds that are killed each year, half of them were not buckled. So that combination of distraction and not wearing a seatbelt is really tough. And, I mentioned to you when I was 22, I drank too much and rolled a car, but I had gotten in the habit really as a sophomore of buckling up. And even though I was intoxicated greatly, actually, I had buckled up. And so when my car rolled, I was totally walked away. And, in the winter, anytime the roads are bad, there's numerous rollovers all over the Twin Cities, but we don't hear about most of them because if you're properly restrained, you're almost never injured in a rollover. But if you're not buckled, you almost always are severely injured or killed because you get ejected from the car, and that's when really bad things happen. So I think peer pressure can be used positively too. And the case I told you, I know more and more people, particularly a few years after the accident, people that knew Kelly use that with their family to make sure that everybody buckled up.
Yeah, I think for sure something that we have to work for is kind of the safe driving culture for everyone. Yeah, because also I think I'm sure this is a point as well, but it's not always the people in the car who are in danger as well. Because if you're distracted, then those pedestrians, those bikers, those other cars can also be in danger.
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yes. And you got to pay attention too, because you may not make the mistake, but I've seen a lot of crazy things happen because other drivers are distracted. So the concept of driving defensively is also very important, which you don't do if you're distracted. So you really got to, it's just common sense, I guess, but you got to watch out for the other person as well.
Yeah. As an individual who cares about distraction-free driving, how can we go about encouraging those around us to drive distraction-free?
I just think more people that talk about it and don't be afraid to call friends out either. Kelly did. She wouldn't allow people to ride with her if they were unbuckled. And my wife used to talk on the phone driving, and Kelly insisted she not do that anymore, and she doesn't, and we don't to this day. Keep telling the message, and maybe you're not killed either, but there's some really hideous injuries that can happen too, that even though you live, it could change your life significantly. So I guess just try to remind people that there's consequences, and forever consequences. It's one thing about death. You read self-help books that, you can fix anything, and you can't fix death, and you can't fix a really serious injury. So the consequences can be really, really terrible.
Yeah. Our last question is, do you have some final words you would like to say to MHS, our high school?
Well, whenever I talk about Kelly, I like to talk about the circumstances around her death, because we can learn a lot from that. But I also, I'll just share a story about Kelly. She had a remarkable sense of people that might be hurting or struggling. She was really against bullying of any type. Got her in trouble a lot because she would stick her nose in situations that sometimes the buller resented, but she couldn't help herself. And she did it over and over and over again. And we got a letter about 2 weeks after the accident, and it was pretty powerful, because sometimes doing the right thing is easier when everybody's doing the right thing, but if everybody's doing the wrong thing, sometimes it's very easy to go with the flow. And this letter told a story about Kelly's last day alive, which was Friday, September 21st. And there was a meeting of this Tonka Leadership Council that Dave Nelson, the old football coach, had started, and Kelly had helped found it. And the concept was to have student leaders leading by example, to do the right thing, not drink, not smoke, do well in the class. And what had happened during the summer is 3 very popular girls had been caught drinking. And the meeting on that Friday was a discussion along what should we do. And they'd signed an oath, and the agreement was if you violated the oath, you would be kicked out of Tonka Leadership Council. But the letter described how Coach Nelson asked everybody to go around the room and give your opinion. And because these girls were so popular, everybody said, well, they apologized. I think we should give them another chance, something to that effect. And this letter said the last person to speak was Kelly. And Kelly said, well, I believe in second chances too. However, we signed an oath. We lead by example. They violated the oath. I don't think we have a choice. And the young woman that wrote that letter was so impressed that Kelly was able to take a moral stand for doing the right thing, even though it was going to be really bad for her social life, because these girls were popular and they were going to come after her big time. But again, she couldn't help herself. So I think that's a neat message about Kelly. And she really influenced a lot of people in a very positive way. And her death kind of accented all the good that she'd accomplished in her life. And so we want people to remember that too.
Oh my God. Oh, I didn't think sorry.
This is kind of a neat sidebar. Is she had a real positive influence on this network of friends at Minnetonka High School. And I got to tell you that many of these people that knew her and were friends of her made course corrections in their life. And many have told me that from that day forward, we tried to live our life more like Kelly did. So not only did they use the distracted driving and seat belts, but also the let's live like Kelly lived. So she wasn't around a long time, but she left a very positive mark. And you know, I feel pretty lucky because I've gotten to the point where I can talk about her and smile instead of cry. And I did a lot of crying, believe me, for a long time. But the faith is probably part of that too, and she inspired me in that area as well. So yeah, it's tragic the way she died, but boy, it was really cool the way she lived. In Pagel Ice Arena, her jersey is hanging in a shadow box, number 17, right above the concession stand. And also there's a plaque that kind of tells Kelly's story. And one of the really neat things is that the Tonka girls hockey program has a leadership and character award that has been renamed the Kelly Phillips Award. And that plaque lists all the award winners. And I will tell you that has become a big deal with the girls hockey to win that award. So if you're over at Pagel, take a look at the jersey and also the plaque, because it's pretty neat. The kids, the week of the accident, put that rock to the side of the building that has a really neat plaque, and that's pretty moving. And I just thought of one other thing that has always touched me. That was homecoming week, which is tough to have two of your classmates die that week. But we were playing Edina, and because Kelly went to Mount Olivet, there was a lot of Edina students, and many of the Edina football players wrote the number 17. Now this one's getting to me, on their socks for the game. And that was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So anyway, so you got me to go.
Oh no.
I didn't think that would happen. Wow, but that really moved me, to see the 17 on their socks. That was Kelly's hockey number, by the way.
That's really
So
cool.
that was another really cool tribute.
Mhm. Thank you, Mr. Phillips, for giving us your time today. We really appreciate the message that you have given us, and hopefully we can help eternalize Kelly Phillips' impact in our community and create a distraction-free driving community at our school. But thank you so much anyways.
Yeah, thank you. It's been nice talking to you guys. Thank you. All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.